Are the Canes not as deep as we were giving them credit for? Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, Freddie Anderson were all skating at practice today in their normal sweaters, not the non-contact jerseys. Brett Pesce with the lower body injury was out. Jalen Chatfield got a maintenance day, so he wasn't skating, but nothing too crazy there. Svech, by the way, did take a puck off the face, got a pretty gnarly gash on his chin.
Yeah, that. Oof.
I mean, it'll play well for a Halloween costume. You could go as some kind of like a monster, or mummy, or zombie, or something like that. Doesn't need the face paint on the face.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a cool score within the next week, and can't wait to see all the ladies out there tweeting about it. Oh, it just makes him more manly than he was before.
There you go. But I mean, it's one of those things where he wasn't going to play tomorrow anyway, so he'll be good to go. I don't think it'll slow anything down. But it was his first practice in a long time, not in a non-contact jersey, and he walks away with a gash on his face, probably a little like, oh, are you kidding me? But that happens. But the point of the bigger story here, the reason why I say this is the Canes may need to ask how dependent they are on their top guys being top guys, right? This season, they have been underwhelming thus far through 6 games. Small sample size, I hear you. But they've been underwhelming, not looking like their former self. Now, here's the interesting part, right? When it became obvious that Svech was going to be held out at the beginning of the season, I was comforted by the fact that they had a ton of depth. I was comforted by the fact that, you could go lines deep, you could go pairings deep and still feel pretty good about who you had. So I was like, Svech, take your time, right? This team is deep. They have the necessary pieces to allow you to be as healthy as you need to before you return. When Aho went down for a couple games, I was comforted by the depth that they had. Right? Oh, this isn't like the other NHL teams that would need their best player to rush back from injury or risk getting off to a slow start. You can lean on some of these other players. And we could list them, right? The Kokeniemis, the obviously Slavin stepped up a bit, the Burns, and it goes on and on. Bunting looks like a nice little addition. Orlov, it was an addition with high expectations. Like I could keep going, but the point was, yeah, take your time, get healthy. They don't need you. They want you, but they don't need you. They're 3-3 through their first 6 games, allowing goals at a rate that seems astronomical compared to last season, and have lost their last 2 games, 3 of their last 4. During office meetings here, there was jokes about, hey, we should do a giveaway for the first time the Canes allow less than 3 goals. They averaged allowing less than 3 goals last year. Now the joke was that it's become an event. It's become celebratory. That used to be the average. That used to be, if it was above, it was like 2.5 goals per game, essentially, a season ago. 3 would have been you're playing worse than your average. Now it's, hey, if they allow less than 3, let's throw a party. Let's give something away. Now, this next part is not necessarily an insult, but it might be a fact. They might need their stars. Now, most NHL teams are that way, right? If your best player and your 3rd or 4th best player, depending on where you want to put Svech with all his injury histories, but I think Aho is their best player, and I think Svech is right there in the top handful. If those guys are missing time, maybe the Canes aren't as deep as we thought they were. The Canes seem to be built with the depth and the let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Everybody makes a contribution. The individual is not greater than the sum of the parts, of whatever the coaching cliche is. But maybe they are more like the other teams than we thought. Maybe they still might need their stars. And I hear you, right? Svech and Aho, they don't play defense. But they kind of do, first of all. You're not getting on the ice if you don't play some form of defense for Rod Brindamour. Right, you have to play 2-way hockey. But it could also just be great decision-making. How many times this year have we seen one bad decision, like on the attacking side of the ice, right, where it's a ill-advised pass, it's a shot that shouldn't have been taken, it's one too many touches, whatever it is, and all of a sudden the puck's going the other way, rush offense for the opponent. I talk about it in basketball all the time, but it's very obvious these roles are played by Aho and Svetch for the Canes when healthy. When the opposing team, and this is my basketball analogy, when the opposing team scores 8 straight points, right? When the opposing team in basketball knocks down 2 threes and gets a fast break layup, and you call your timeout to end the run, what player are you giving the ball to coming out of the timeout? That's your bread and butter, right? That's where your Hall of Famers come in. That's the difference between making $50 million a year in the NBA and making $12 million a year in the NBA. It's very obvious now that when the opposing team gets something going, right, 2 good looks, right, they get 2 looks, and heck, one hits the post and maybe the other is an incredible save by Freddie. Either way, when they're starting to feel it, who do you give the puck to get the momentum back on your side? It appears as if the Canes version of that isn't out there right now. And I get, like, trust me, Brady Shea's put up points. Slavin has put up points. They're near the top point scorers, which is great, right? Defensemen getting up there and getting involved. But they've needed every one of those points. Right? A season ago, I loved that the Canes led the league in points from their defense, right? They led the league in defenseman points and goals, I should say. I love that. But I love it even more when you don't need it, right? When the forwards, when the centers, the wingers, when they can score the goals, and then you get one from Slavin or Shea or whoever it is, Burns, and you go, hey, what a nice surprise. Not when it's like, we desperately need these guys to score or else we're not going to be able to keep up. That's where it becomes an issue. Again, this is not an insult, more of an observation. Maybe they aren't as their strength is the entire group. Maybe there is, like, hey, we need our top guys to not only play, we need our top guys to play well. Let's hear from Rod Brindamour following the most recent loss to Colorado, part of their road swing, which is coming to a close. But here's Rod Brindamour on the overall takeaway from the Avalanche game.
It was a tough game because I felt like we were doing pretty good, doing some good things. It just, obviously special teams just ate us up, and so we're in one. I mean, it's not like we were giving up a ton, but just every time they had that opportunity, man, they put it in the bag of the net, and that's what a great team does.
I'm not accusing Rod of lying. I think he was withholding some of the truth there. I think he's pretty darn frustrated. I don't think it's like, oh, we were doing some good things. I don't think that's in his DNA to say 6 goals, like, oh, we were doing the special teams, oh, we're not really getting it done. I think he is somebody that understands coach speak and understands talking to the media, and then understands the different message to be sent behind closed doors.
It's just like you mentioned on Friday. Sometimes it feels like we need a translator for coach talk.
An anger translator, coach speak translator, right? Something where you can enter in what Rod said and get out what he was thinking. Because I can't imagine a coach with his system, his background, his history as both a player and a coach is looking at back-to-back games where they allowed 7 and 6 goals and is saying, like, oh, we've done some good things and we need to just improve on these. Goodness gracious, he's not that. I would say the standard is higher for a Rod Brindamour coach team. Here's more from Coach on which goals were a killer for them in that Colorado game.
The shorthanded is a killer. Really the one at the end of the first is a killer. We get our helmet ripped off. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have went a little bit differently in this game, but you got to give that team credit. I mean, they're world-class players. They're world-class, like as elite as you can have, and they're special.
This is one of the tough conversations that happens across all of sports, right? Yes. Some of those goals come in fluky circumstance, right? The helmet ripped off, coming in fluky, the shorthanded goal where you really make a bad decision. Like those they're a bit fluky. But the thing is, like, flukes happen every year, right? By the nature of a fluke is like you can't predict it, kind of comes out of nowhere, right? Maybe it's a bad call, maybe it's a lucky break. But last year when you gave up 2.5 goals per game, flukes were taking place too. Right? You can't say over whatever it is, an 82-game schedule, that last year we didn't have any flukes, and now 6 games into this one we've had a bunch of them. I talk about this with interceptions all the time. Right? It's oh, that interception was tipped at the line. That interception bounced off the receiver's hands. That interception, the defensive player made a great play. That interception was because of the wind. It's like, yeah, I get it, right? And as a former quarterback, trust me, there's no excuse that I haven't made. But at the same time, the good quarterbacks throw less interceptions. And their balls get tipped to the line occasionally. Their receivers don't catch everything. The wind, it doesn't not affect their passes. The great quarterbacks don't throw a ton of interceptions. The great defenses in the NHL don't allow a lot of goals. Now, that's not to say that the referees don't make bad calls for them. That's not to say that calls don't go missed for them. That's not to say that they don't have bad ricochets off of skates and how it becomes an immediate perfect lead pass for an opponent. It's sometimes the good defenses overcome all of that. And I thought the Canes were that way even with their studs on the bench, even with a few of their best players out with an injury. Now we have to ask ourselves, and I'm not answering it yet, but I'm asking it. Are they as deep as we thought? Do they have the depth that we anticipated them having when we were very cool with like, oh, Svetch, take your time. Oh, Aho, yeah, take your time. Maybe it's like, hey, you know what? As soon as you're ready, let us know. Like as soon, as quick, and as hit the extra rehab, do what you got to do to get back quickly. 'Cause it turns out we might need it.
Do you think this causes any motivation for Rod Brindamour now that this tough Western road stretch is wrapping up? You're getting ready to play Tampa tomorrow night before returning to Raleigh on Thursday. Do you think this motivates him anymore to get Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov, or at least going and asking, like, hey, like, when do you feel like you guys can be ready to be 100% or close to it?
I mean, yes, and what I think it does is it just – you no longer add it in. And what I mean by that is the training staff comes up and says, like, hey, we're looking at, we want 3, and this is all made up here. This is a hypothetical situation. Hey, we're looking at like 3, we want like 3 hard practices before we give them the A-OK. Right? If this were a week ago, 2 weeks ago, do you know what I would say? Hey, do they need 4? Like, what can we do to make sure they're good when they come back? Like, let's make sure we're getting them all the way back. Now you just go, all right, perfect. Right? You don't fight back with conservative ideas, conservative ideas. You just say that on the radio and people get mad. You don't fight back with cautious ideas of like, hey, let's make sure he's all the way back. Now you just accept what they say. That's how I would take it.